Good evening, everyone. Can we please take our seats? Silence our cell phones, please, so we don't have any interruptions. We're going to start our City Council meeting this is a special council meeting for Article 97. And so this is recorded, and this is recorded by video and audio in accordance with open meeting law. And could we get a flag salute and a moment of silence, please? Councilor O'Hara. Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to thank everybody for being here tonight. I know this is a hot topic. We're here to listen to your concerns. This is a special council meeting for the sole purpose to hear the public opinion on the petition on behalf of the City of Gloucester to the state legislature to use 11 Webster Street, which includes Mado's Field, held by the city to be used for municipal school purposes without an Article 97 restriction. In exchange for that use, the city will hold and use the East Gloucester school site, approximately 3 acres, for the public park and open spaces. As with all city council public hearings, the main proponent will speak for the first 15 minutes, and all those who wish to speak in favor afterwards have up to 3 minutes each to give their name, address, and opinion. Once they have made their statement, the main opponent will have 15 minutes to speak, and each subsequent person in opposition will have 3 minutes each to give their name, address, and opinion. There will be no action taken tonight by the council this evening. This is strictly an opportunity to listen to those who wish to speak this evening on Article 97 petition. A vote on the matter of the petition will be taken up under the P&D committee report at the council's regularly scheduled meeting tomorrow evening at February 25th. So we're going to speak in, just real quick. So just so everybody knows, we have rules of procedure. Our rules of procedure that says we give 15 minutes to the in favor, 15 minutes in the opposition, and then 3 minutes after that. So these are our rules of procedure. We're going to stick to them really strictly tonight because we have quite a few people that want to speak to us this evening. Our city clerk will be doing the timer. There'll be a visual up here. She's going to give you a quick yellow sign that says you got 15 seconds left, and then another stop sign. So just pay attention up here and speak to the council, please. That's who you're speaking to. Try not to speak to the audience this evening, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to give your opinion to us. That being said, Councilor Pett and Gilman have something to say. Councilor Pett.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to declare that under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 268A, that when the original fundraising for Light Up Mado's Field was done, it was done through the Gloucester Fund, and I am the fund's president. Thousands of dollars was raised, for which I had no financial interest whatsoever, and was only assisting that group in raising funds. And those funds were turned over to the Gloucester Fishermen's Athletic Association for the continuation of their fundraising. And I have, again, no financial interest in or conflict, and can discuss and vote on the request for Article 97 petition to the Massachusetts legislature to dispose of Mado's playground for the combined school project, and I so declare.
Thank you, Councilor Pett. Councilor Gilman.
I just wanted to disclose that under MGL, Chapter 268A, Section 23B, Part 3, that I am a volunteer with the Gloucester Education Foundation Community Council. I am not on their board. I am a member of their community council. I help with 3 or 4 projects a year. And I have no financial interest or conflict on the matter that's before the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gilman. So I am going to open the public hearing. I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, can we call the first order of business, please?
Okay. Public hearing 2020-002, request that the state legislatures file a petition on behalf of the city of Gloucester requesting that the general court authorize the city of Gloucester to use certain land known in numbers as 11 Webster Street, which includes Mados Field and is held by the city pursuant to deeds recorded by Book 2599, page 151, and Book 2867, page 34, in the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds for municipal school purposes without Article 97 restrictions on such use, and in exchange, the city will use and hold the East Gloucester School site, known and numbered as 8 David Street Extent Street, and comprising approximately 3 acres for a public park and open space purposes without Article 97 restrictions on such use, provided that the legislature may reasonably vary the form and substance of the requested legislation within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition. Now you can do that.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I've also got a couple of requests, so just make sure when you come up to the microphone, you speak into the microphone nice and clear. You don't want to get too close, because if you get too close, so just speak nice and loud and clear so everybody hears. If you have a written statement, can you please leave it on our clerk of committee's desk so she can have it for the record? So anybody that has, name and address up at the microphone, and the any written statement that you want you have written, we'll submit to our clerk of committees. So I'm going to open the public hearing and ask for our general counsel to come up and explain what we're here for this evening.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the City Council. I'm Chip Payson. I'm the city's general counsel. I'm here tonight to discuss the Article 97 petition for Mados Field. I apologize if you may have heard some of this presentation before, but given that this is a meeting of the full City Council, I thought it wise to err on the side of redundancy. As you know, late last year, the East Gloucester School Building Committee selected Veterans Memorial School in Mados Field as the preferred site for the new combined school building project. During that selection process, certain questions arose pertaining to any deed restrictions on the property and how to handle them if they existed. The first question as to whether there are any deed restrictions on the Mados Field property requires a discussion of the property's history. According to the city's website, the property in question is located at 11 Webster Street. While it is arguably one piece of property now, it did not start out that way. In 1924, the city purchased a parcel of land that included the area known as Webster's Pond from Cape Pond Ice. There were no restrictions in the deed for the use of the 1924 property, and it is my understanding that the pond remained on the property until well into the 1950s. In 1930, the city purchased another parcel of land comprised of 42,000 square feet from Cape Pond Ice. This 1930 property did contain a deed restriction, and that restriction required that the property be used as a public playground or recreational center. Consistent with that deed restriction, in the 1930 deed, in 1934, the City Council voted to dedicate a playground on the 1930 property in honor of World War I veteran Joseph Mados. This became Mados Playground. In or about 1954, the city petitioned the legislature for approval to transfer the 1930 property in its entirety and a portion of the 1924 property to the school committee for use to build Veterans Memorial School. The legislature approved the petition and authorized the city to take and use for public school purposes the portion of Mados Playground situated on Webster Street instead of said playground being used for public playground purposes. That language is actually in the legislation. At some point in time thereafter, Webster's Pond was filled in on the 1924 property. Veterans Memorial School was built using the 1930 property, which included Mados Playground and the southern portion of the 1924 property, and Mados Field came into being on the northern part of the 1924 property. There's no evidence of any deed restrictions subsequent to 1954 that pertains to the 1924 property, which includes the current Mados Field. The second question is whether there are any other restrictions on the use of the Mados Field property. There may be Article 97 protection of Mados Field. Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution was ratified in 1972. It provides protection for open space from changes in use and development without the approval of a two-thirds vote of each branch of the legislature. The courts have interpreted this protection rather broadly. In our case, a broad interpretation could lead one to argue that Mados Field is in fact protected by Article 97. If such a legal challenge was mounted, it would likely take several years to wind its way through the courts. While the city may ultimately be successful in such a court case, it would likely take time that the school building committee does not have. Therefore, it is prudent to request Article 97 relief from the legislature as if Mados Field has Article 97 protection. The third question then is, how should the city proceed? It is not uncommon in Massachusetts for a municipality to petition the legislature to allow it to change the use of an Article 97 protected piece of property. In fact, there are a number of bills before the legislature right now requesting this very thing in different communities. In any Article 97 process, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, EEA, is the agency on point. On February 19, 1998, the EEA, then referred to as the EOEA, issued an Article 97 land disposition policy. This policy stated that in order for the city to use a piece of property that had Article 97 protection, the city would need to replace it with a piece of property of equal or greater fair market value and significantly greater resource value that also has Article 97 protection. This is EEA's no net loss policy. It means that according to EEA, the city would need to offer another piece of property to be used in place of Mados Field and deed restrict it so that there is no net loss of Article 97 protected open space in Gloucester. In discussions with the EEA General Counsel's office, they indicated that such a land swap did not need to be instantaneous. Accordingly, the city has identified the East Gloucester School site as a property of similar size and value to Mados Field. The city has recommended that the East Gloucester School site be protected and designated as open space in place of Mados Field in such a way as to satisfy the requirements of Article 97. On February 11th, the EEA's General Counsel's office approved the city's proposal as outlined in my January 22nd, 2020 memo. What I have just discussed was most of the presentation that I gave to the Planning and Development Committee on February 5th. I'd now like to address just a few additional items that have been raised since that meeting. First, a question was raised about a document from the assessor's office. At the end of the Planning and Development Committee meeting on February 5th, a document was handed to the committee members and a response was requested. The document in question is on assessor's office letterhead, and it is dated November 22nd, 1930. It deals directly with the sale of the 1930 land. Oddly, in doing so, it also references the 1924 land and states that the 1924 land was, quote, a parcel of land conveyed by the grantor to the grantee for playground purposes by deed dated April 17th, 1924. The problem with this language is there is no restriction like this one cited in this document in the 1924 deed. Further, and perhaps most importantly, the grantor of the 1930 property had no legal right to place a restriction on the 1924 property in 1930 after the fact because they didn't even own the property then. So what are we left with? In Massachusetts, we are a recording state. The recording of deeds and mortgages at the Registry of Deeds puts the public on notice of the conveyance of land and any conditions that may have been placed upon that land. The deed is the controlling document. It's the legal means by which land is transferred. The current site of Mados Field is on the 1924 property, so the 1924 deed controls, and that deed contains no restrictions. For the sake of argument, though, and purely as a hypothetical, what if the 1930 assessor's document had in fact placed some kind of restriction on the 1924 property? So what? Again, assuming this is true and could even happen, which legally I would suggest it cannot, then the only way to remove such a condition is through an Article 97 request to and vote of the legislature. In other words, the only way to remove such a restriction is through an Article 97 petition from the City Council to the legislature. This is what we're doing already. In my opinion, therefore, the alleged issue raised by the assessor's document is moot. Second, I would like to briefly comment on EEA's Article 97 policy from 1998. It must be noted that this is a policy. It is not law. As such, it does not have the same force and effect as law. In fact, it's interesting to note that EEA themselves state in their own 1998 policy memo that although legislation can be enacted to dispose of Article 97 land without the consent of an EEA agency, it is the policy of EEA to minimize such occurrences, not to stop them, but to minimize them. In other words, it appears that EEA is admitting that their consent is not legally required. Remember, Article 97 of the Constitution only requires that there be a 2/3 vote of the legislature before a municipality can change the use of Article 97 protected land. Nevertheless, as I've stated before, we have been working with and we are committed to continuing to work with EEA throughout this process. To date, we have their support and their approval. I would also like to briefly comment on number 4 in the EEA policy entitled Applicability of the Policy to Municipalities. The first step in number 4 requires the unanimous approval of the Conservation Commission. This requirement is included more often than not because Article 97 land contains a conservation restriction in its deed, and in those cases, CONCOM approval is required. That's not the case here. The 1924 deed contains no CONCOM restrictions, so CONCOM has no jurisdiction over Mados Field. I communicated this to the EEA General Counsel's office and they agreed this step is not necessary. The second step requires unanimous approval of the Municipal Park Commission. This requirement is included often because the land in question is under the care, custody, and control of the local Municipal Park Commission. That's not the case here either. Mados Field is under the care, custody, and control of the city through the Department of Public Works. I also communicated this to the EEA General Counsel's office and they agreed this step is not necessary. That leaves us with the third step under number 4 in the policy, which is City Council approval of an Article 97 petition, and that is before you now. Third and finally, I'd like to briefly reiterate the proposed procedure that the city should follow. The East Gloucester School Building Committee voted to recommend the existing Veterans Memorial School in Mados Field to the Gloucester School Committee for use in the combined school project. The school committee voted to select the recommended site and requested that the city take all necessary steps to ensure that the site is available to the school committee for use in the school project. The city requested and received preliminary approval from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, specifically regarding the city's response to the EEA's no net loss policy. The City Council then votes by a 2/3 majority to approve sending an Article 97 petition to the legislature, and the mayor must approve this as well. And this is the issue before you now. Yet to come are the legislature votes by a 2/3 majority of each branch to approve the Article 97 petition, and the governor approves. The Gloucester Department of Public Works issues a memorandum declaring that the use of Mados Field may be changed and refers the matter to the city's Land Disposition Committee for action. The Land Disposition Committee votes to approve the change in the use of Mados Field and forwards its recommendations to the mayor. The mayor, through the mayor's report, refers the matter to the City Council. City Council votes to transfer care, custody, and control from the Department of Public Works to the school committee. That vote requires a 2/3 vote by the City Council and mayor's approval. The Article 97 issue before you now, in my opinion, is administrative in nature. The site has already been selected by the school building committee. By approving the petition before you, you're simply asking the legislature for the flexibility to choose whether or not to transfer the site to the school committee. This is about local choice. That's why we're here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip. So the way we're going to do this evening is we're going to be respectful to everybody, whether you're in favor or whether you're in opposition, please. People come up to the microphone. They have a hard time speaking in public. So we want to give everybody an opportunity up here this evening to speak with respect. I'd also like to ask you to hold your applause. We've got quite a few people up here this evening, so we want to try to get to everybody this evening. So let's just be respectful, no heckling and no questioning whatnot. If somebody says something or mispronounces something, just let the speaker speak through and we'll go on to the next person. Yeah. Are they here?
Bruce just walked in.
All right, so we've got a couple people that I'm going to announce that are here this evening. We have our chairman of the school committee, Jonathan Pope, our superintendent, Richard Sapphire, school committee member, Melissa Texera Prince, Joel Favaza, Kathy Clancy, Samantha Verga Watson. We have Senator Tars here, and Ann Margaret Ferranti is also here. So thank you for coming this evening. So obviously this is important to all of us. That's why we have our state representatives here also. So is there anybody that would like to speak in favor this evening? We're going to do the opposition after the in favor. So we're going to divide it in. Not yet. So in favor, if there's anybody that would like to speak in favor, if you want to line up over this room, we've got 3 minutes for you. So step right up to the microphone. Don't be shy. Step right up to the microphone. Name and address.
Thank you. My name is Paul Lundberg. I live at 5 Bridgewater Street in Gloucester, and I'm also a member of an organization called Vote Yes for Gloucester Kids. And we are a municipal ballot initiative committee, and we have formed to encourage the voters of Gloucester to vote for the debt override that will be necessary for the building of this school. What I would like to just point out a couple of things quickly to the council. As Chip said, he walked you through the process of how we got to this point tonight with the designation of the land by the school committee, a vote of the school committee. This is an important vote tonight by the city council, but it's not the most important vote that will happen for this project. That vote will come in November when we give this over to the citizens of Gloucester. And you know, when we've had our discussions over the years on city council about do the people get to decide, this is a time when the people will get to decide, and it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that the issue is framed up for them in November. So this is an important step. Chip said it was procedural, and that's probably true, although there's a lot of emotional issues that we have to solve for. But remember that this is the first of several votes. You will get this back after the legislature approves it to vote on the disposition. So this is not the last vote by any means, but the most important last vote is the people. Secondly, I would just like to comment on the memorial of Joseph Matos. I think we all know, and we've all had a joint experience together as counselors, about how dedicated the city of Gloucester is to its veterans and to its veterans' memories, and to honor the present veterans as well as the past veterans. And I have no doubt that the city will take care of honoring Joseph Matos in a very appropriate way. And I would urge the city council to support the mayor and Adam Kukuru in that endeavor, because that will happen. And the third thing I would like to say is the issue of the softball field. Again, this is a public resource, the softball field. We should respect the people who spent so much time and effort to build that field, and respect them by providing them a alternative field that is satisfactory. That way they get to have that public asset, and this very important piece of land gets to go to an extremely important school project. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you, Council President Lundberg. Next, name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Paul Romery. I live at 80 Prospect Street. And, excuse me? Where was I born? In Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh,
So,
be respectful, please.
I can't help being from
Speak
Cleveland.
to us. Hello, just
Thank
speak to
you.
us. Please be respectful.
I previously submitted a letter to the council members outlining why I support this project, but I wanted to put a little bit of a spin and context on that. For 15 years, I ran a state hospital for the Department of Public Health. The building was constructed, opened in 1954. It had 600 beds. It was intended to be a chronic care facility, and in 1954, it fit the bill. It's still open today. What it's gone through to keep pace with the changes required for managing patient care for community patients with all kinds of illnesses, for mental health patients, for correctional patients, for a shelter, for a daycare center, to use this campus constructively has required change over time. And nearly 70 years later, it's still going, but it's not an easy task to maintain patient care in that environment. We have a school building that's 70 years old, and it's not easy to educate kids in that environment forever. We have another school building that's approaching that age. Time is of the essence. We don't have the opportunity to make these choices very often. And I think that the council has an incredibly difficult job, recognize that, and I think everybody in this audience will. But it is important that we take this step forward, consolidate a school building, satisfy the needs of the people who put their sweat and treasure into Meadows Field, and come out at the end with a school building that's fitting for our kids. Just like I want to deliver patient care in a contemporary environment, I think we want to do the same thing for our kids for today and for the next 50 years, because that's how long this building's going to have to last. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Next.
Hi, my name is John McElhenney. I live with my family on Allen Street. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is a difficult decision, so thanks for listening to everybody. I'm here to ask for the council's support, in particular with this issue before you tonight, but also for the larger school project. I think it will improve the lives of generations of Gloucester kids. It'll provide a modern learning environment for more than 400 kids. Think about that, 400 kids every year for decades. Multiply those 400 plus kids by the next 40 or 50 or 60 years. We're talking thousands and thousands of Gloucester children and their families. It's difficult to think of any project that you as counselors will vote on that will have a larger impact on so many Gloucester families. I totally understand some of the opponents and volunteers who worked hard to raise money to improve Meadows Field. They're worried their efforts will be for nothing. But I think we as a city, I think we can find a new field to replace Meadows Field that's better than ever. It may be the existing fields at Green Street, at the high school, or even in Burnham's Field. I think we can do it as a city. I also understand that some people are worried about honoring Joseph Meadows. We'll hear that name a lot tonight, and deservedly so. But I think we as a city can solve that by creating a new Meadows Field again that will continue to honor his name. As a city, we can do this again. Sometimes in Gloucester, we oppose change because we really like things the way they are, and especially the way they were. I understand that too. It's part of why Gloucester is such a special place to live. This isn't some boring suburb we live in. We all love living here, and sometimes we don't want it to change. But it's like having a son or a daughter or a niece or a goddaughter or grandchild. As much as we love them and want them to stay 4 years old or 6 years old or 8 years old forever, we can't keep them from changing. In the same way, with our city, we can't close our eyes and say, don't change, and hope that our city stays stuck in the past forever. There's a field next to where my family lives, Burnham's Field, downtown. It's less than a half mile from Meadows. 100 or so years ago, it was a landfill. Then the city had the good idea to build houses in the field for veterans returning from the war. When the houses started falling down, the city cleared Burnham's, and it became an open space. Eventually, the city built softball fields and basketball courts there, and about 10 years ago, some neighbors worked with the city to build some playgrounds there. 2 community gardens went in too. My point is, Burnham's Field has changed a lot over the years. What will it be in 5 or 10, 15 or 20 years? I have no idea. But just like a child who's constantly growing and changing, our city has to change too. I think we as a city can do this. I think we can build a new school that creates a great education for generations of kids, and I think we can build a new Mados Field that makes Joseph Mados proud. Thank you for
John.
the opportunity to speak.
Could you leave your statement with Dana, please? Thank you. Next. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Chris Boucher. I live at 15 Lawndale Circle. Thank you to the council for this opportunity, and thank you to all the folks here tonight on both sides. I think it's a testimony to the vibrancy of our community that there's so many people here. I'm here to speak to you in support of a new school, of the new school project. Some of our schools are very old, and East Gloucester School and Veterans School certainly qualify. They're too old to be effective as schools. They will require millions of dollars in maintenance over the next several years if we do nothing. And we have in front of us a great opportunity to build a new consolidated school that, as John mentioned, will serve hundreds of Gloucester students for years to come. A lot of work has gone into this proposal. We have an opportunity for matching state funds. There are obstacles, as there always are with a project of this magnitude. And I think 2 significant obstacles that have been raised, and I'm grateful they have been raised, are the loss of open space with the loss of Mados Field. And I think that we can overcome that obstacle. The proposal to use the site of the East Gloucester School would more than replace that open space, and I hope that you will agree with me that that satisfactorily overcomes that obstacle. And the other obstacle is that we can and should continue to honor the memory of Joseph Mados, and I'm confident that the city will find an appropriate way to continue to do that. But I hope that you will do everything you can to bring this project to fruition. I think that the students of Gloucester need this. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Chris. Name and address, please.
Kristen Parsons, 39 Harriet Road. I'm a parent of 2 students in the Gloucester Public Schools, one currently attending the East Gloucester School. I'm also a teacher at the East Gloucester School, and tonight I stand here representing most of the teaching staff, some of whom are here tonight. You'll see I have teachers from Veterans as well as East Gloucester standing up here with me. 100% of the East Gloucester teachers are on board and fully support this new school project. 100% have signed and are in support. We are asking that you please support this land swap, which is the critical next step in making this much-needed new school a reality. The swap will make sure that we provide important green space in the city while allowing for a state-of-the-art elementary school to serve hundreds of our children every year. We would also like to thank the counselors for taking the time to tour the building and hope it proves that the case that a new school is necessary for our students and teachers. Again, please vote in favor of the land swap, allowing Gloucester's children the chance for a wonderful new learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Jason Grow, 12 Marble Road. While I was not born in Gloucester, 2 of my 3 children were. All 3 of my children went to East Gloucester Elementary School. All 3 of my children went to O'Malley Middle School, and all 3 graduated from Gloucester High School. We have a pretty profound investment in Gloucester Public Schools. We loved East Gloucester Elementary School, and I'm not going to repeat much of what was in my letter because you've already read that. It's in the record. But it was an amazing experience to be part of East Gloucester Elementary, and to see the possibility of it going is sad. In fact, Amber Tells was our first teacher, who was just up here a moment ago at East Gloucester. We have a lot of lovely memories, but it is a building, and buildings need to be changed, need to be updated. Veterans also needs to be changed, needs to be upgraded. We have an opportunity with this land swap and with this process to build for the 21st century a school that is vastly superior and very much needed for our students in our coming generations, including hopefully my grandchildren one day. But we have a history in Gloucester of passing over opportunities where we will pass up great sums of money that is being offered to us through the state and federal government to not do we end up not doing the projects, and we end up paying that deficit. We have a sewer project that is going to be, it cost the city millions and millions of dollars over what it should have cost us a generation ago. We have a lot of big projects coming up our way that we are going to have to pay for. To turn away the state money that is available to us to provide us a modern 21st century school for our elementary school kids is foolishness. And I don't think you guys are fools. I don't think the city is foolish. I think we need to make the step. And before people get upset, I love softball. My girls were part of the team that won the second place in the state championship last year. They played Vikings. They played in high school. They played at Matos. We can honor Matos in his memory. We can honor softball. We can honor our children. We have this opportunity here, and I hope you take it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grow. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Martin Del Vecchio, and for the gentleman in the back, I am from not here. I've only lived here for 24 years, and I will admit to the gentleman in the back that when I moved here with my not even yet wife, all we were looking for was a view of the ocean. We literally did not look at schools, neighborhoods, communities, or anything. We lucked out, ended up in East Gloucester, and East Gloucester Elementary became the center of our amazing community that means more to us than anything in our life. My wife and I spent many hours volunteering when our two kids were at East Gloucester School. One of the most important jobs of a volunteer at East Gloucester School is called shusher, and that's during the MCAS tests. Parents are arrayed down the hallways to shush people who are making too much noise for the kids taking tests. This is a real job, am I right? Shh. That's necessary because the school was built in 1948. One of my favorite things to do in the volunteer position was to read to kids, and that had to be done in the hallway because there's literally no place except the classrooms to do anything like that. You know about the leaky roof in the auditorium, you know about the heating system that hasn't been working this winter, on and on. East Gloucester needs to be rebuilt. Veterans needs to be rebuilt. I think everyone knows that and understands that. The issue here is, where is it going to be rebuilt? The answers are in here. The answers are in the notes from all the meetings that the school committee has gone through. You know that. This information is available. I believe that the school committee has done everything they can to come up with the right location for the school, to combine it with East Gloucester and veterans. I'm a small neighborhood school guy, fiercely supportive of that. But this is the right move for Gloucester, and I'll reiterate everything, the emotions on the other side, I know match my emotions, I understand that, but accommodations can be made, and the city can move forward with the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Name and address, please.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Leslie Friday, and I live at 3 Gold Court. I have 3 children, all who have gone through the public school system. My oldest graduated from EGS last year, and my 2 younger children are currently a 3rd grader and a kindergartner. I want to voice my support for the new elementary school and for it to be at the current vet site, and also to repurpose the Matos field for the open space that will eventually abut any new school there. I also would like to voice my support for the open space swap, so to speak, that is under question right now at the current EGS site. I and my family deeply value open space and parks in this community. I think it's one of the most beautiful things about Gloucester is that we have ample space, trails, parks, play areas. My family and I were playing a pickup soccer game in Stage 4 Park this weekend. It's just a wonderful thing about our community, and I would really want to cherish that and not lose any open space. So I strongly support that there be no net loss, that there be a net swap for the open space that would be Mados Field for the EGS site. I also think that I would want to respect concerns of the neighbors of the current EGS community. And while we do not live in the neighborhood, my kids are all driven there. We live in downtown, and we're lucky enough to choice into the EGS community. I understand the value of knowing what's going to happen at that site once the building, should it be torn down, what goes there. And I think no better purpose would be to have a beautiful public park available for everyone, including the neighbors, but anyone who drives to parks, as my family does, because we don't have that opportunity to just walk across the street to a park. So I would definitely support that. And I want to ask the city to find an appropriate public space to honor Joseph Mados. Like many of my fellow residents here, I'm new to Gloucester. I've only lived here 13 years with my family, and I know that I don't know the family in question, but I do come from a family of veterans. My father is a Vietnam veteran. I have uncles who served in the Vietnam War, great uncles who served in the Korean War, grandfathers who served in World War II. I understand the value of respecting and honoring someone like Joseph Mados, and I would urge the city to do the same. I have a younger brother who actually serves in the Air Force proudly in Germany. So I want to just put in that note to keep in mind the family of Joseph Mados. And I ask the city to work with supporters and donors of the current softball field so that they find an appropriate public space that could meet the needs of the softball players. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Leslie. Next, please. Name and address for the record.
Rachel Afalo, 225 Bray Street. I am a native of Gloucester. My children who attend Gloucester Public Schools, a third grader in West Parish and a sixth grader in O'Malley. They're the third generation of my family to attend Gloucester Public Schools, West Parish, and the fourth generation of my family to live here. I stood in this room 9 years ago, pregnant with my third grader, and I was here to hear all about this great West Parish project. People from all over our city came here and spoke in favor of the project. I didn't know that was going to happen. I was struck by how amazing our community was because their children were not attending that school. Their grandchildren were not attending that school. They were just here to tell us how important it was to build this for the community. And that was, as I felt, and I still feel today, the first of a major step that this city took going forward. A huge positive step. My daughter's in third grade. She has advantages that third graders in EGS do not have. She does not have to worry about the temperature of her classroom. She doesn't have to worry about leaving stuff over vacation for it to be ruined, like eaten or moldy when it comes home. She doesn't worry about ceiling tiles falling on her head. These are all legitimate issues, and we know they have to be addressed. When I think about the schools going forward, you know, we're educating the future city council members. We're educating a future Anne Margaret Ferrante. We're educating a future Bruce Tarr. So we need to put our best foot forward, and consolidating these schools, doing what's fiscally sound is a step in the right direction. Obviously, figuring out how to honor Mr. Mados is definitely something we need to do. I mean, Mados Memorial School, I think that's a fantastic way to do it. But it's obviously something that, for our community, would be another huge positive step. And I hope to see it happen and that you all vote for the land swap. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor? Seeing none. You're going to speak? All right. So we've got the opposition. So we're going to give the opposition 15 minutes. So a lead presenter can get up and speak. So you'll have 15 minutes. So name and address, please.
I want to get this mic right this time. Hello, my name is Patty Amaral. I live on Myrtle Square. I'm here to talk about Article 97 and how it protects open space and recreation areas in our city.
Patty, can you just a
Okay.
smidge back? Perfect.
Okay. Our city adopted Article 97 to protect Mados Field and other public open spaces 40 years ago. In doing so, our city assured citizens that the public parks, woodlands, stream sides, and other open spaces that they know and love cannot be converted to other uses without a public process and legislative action affording citizens the opportunity to advocate for the land and with mitigation if a disposition were to happen. In addition to adopting Article 97 40 years ago, our city adopted our Comprehensive Plan 2001 to further identify and protect all open space in our city. This plan also reinforces existing policies to protect the environmental and natural resources by recommending new actions or regulations to preserve water, air, and the very rock and ledge upon which much of Gloucester is built. Because of the 2001 plan, the Open Space and Recreation Advisory Committee was formed in 2010 to create and implement an open space and recreation plan for the city which will ensure the existence, smart use, access to open space in perpetuity, ensure that contiguous areas, functions, and values that depends on them are maintained. The City of Gloucester's open space plan states that the highest level of protection land transferred with a deed that expressly states that that land has been acquired for open space and recreational purposes, including Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution, adopted in 1918, amended in 1972, that allows government or private entities to hold conservation restrictions. Land that has traditionally been used for open space and recreation purposes also has a high degree of protection since Article 97 has been interpreted to cover these areas even in the absence of express deed language. The goal of our Open Space Committee continues to be to identify, prioritize, and preserve highly valued open space through permanent protection and increase public access to open space and waterfronts, consistent with preservation of environmental resources and consideration of needs and amenities of our neighborhoods and the city as a whole. We feel that Mados Field is the only significant open space within this densely populated neighborhood. By voting to build upon this dedicated playground recreation area, our city council will go against everything that we have planned together and adopted to protect our open spaces. This proposed do school process knocked out East Gloucester in part because moving forward there would undercut all the city's prior plans in place, like density in the neighborhood. Why aren't the plans for this neighborhood afforded the same respect and treatment? We understand that the city will request an Article 97 exemption, and they have proposed to create an open space in the existing East Gloucester neighborhood, but it will be a significant distance from this densely populated community, where this green space is intricately linked in accessibility to most from the surrounding Mados Field neighborhood. We feel this open space property should not be considered because it's not of equal value and size to Mados Field, which makes it ineligible for an Article 97 exemption. According to the city's municipal records, it received federal funds multiple times. We urge you to vote no to send the petition for disposition to our legislative body based on the information and facts I have discussed with you tonight. Please preserve, protect, and maintain our open spaces. Thank you, Patty Amaral. For Joseph.
Thank you, Patty. So I know there's a lot of people to speak in opposition this evening, so I'm going to ask if some of you would like to stand up. I know, get up on this side of the auditorium, and all right, so name and address for the record, please? Oh, hold on one second. All right, and let's be respectful, and let's also hold the applause, because I want to try to get everybody to speak this evening, so the longer it takes us, the... All right, so just please abide by what we're requesting, that's all. Thank you. Name and address for the record.
Lucky Sean Pavone, 15 Wall Street. I've been here for 15 years. I'm a member of the GFC. I see the kids playing down there all Wednesday, Thursday. They're all having a ball down there when they put the lights in. It was amazing how the community came through to put that all in. And to see this going, as a project manager in my back home in Seattle where I was raised, over 20 years of project managing, you can put a school there and not destroy the field. You don't have to destroy the field and everything. You can build a school in the footprint and still maintain Mateo's Field.
Thank you. Next, name and address, please.
Hi, Mary Ann Albert Boucher, 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue. Gloucester Times, February 22nd. If the city gains Article 97 relief, the city will use and hold the East Gloucester School site, known and numbered as 8 Davis Street Extension, comprising of approximately 3 acres, for public park and open space purposes, without Article 97 restrictions on such use, provided that the legislature may reasonably vary the form and substance of the requested legislation with the scope of the general public's objectives of this petition. Let's be clear, this land can be taken away at any time and used as the city sees fit if no restrictions are placed on it. Will this be a fair land swap, as Matos Field has stood as a recreational playground for 85 years? It is not balanced if the property doesn't remain open green space. This proposed motion makes a strong case that while the intention is to make a swap of equal or greater value, it is diminished when the city can dispose of the new swap land once such a vote is approved. Leads the public to believe that. The Times also states, February 22nd, the argument defends the ball field's permanence and its current address, claiming that if it was deeded as preserved green space, and the legitimacy of the claim will continue this evening. February 12th, school committee meeting, Dr. Sapphire, quote, we're talking city council versus the populace. It's 2/3 vote in the House and 2/3 vote in the Senate. And if it's approved, what standing does a litigator have? He continues, I'm asking you not to conflate the need for the city council to be fully educated versus our availability to get the message out, on simple terms, end quote. With a project of great magnitude, all information regarding both the veterans and each ES property should have been readily available for the people's view. The purpose of Article 97 is to ensure no net loss of Article 97 lands under the ownership and control of the Commonwealth and its political subdivisions. The Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs will not support an Article 97 disposition unless the sponsoring agency determines that exceptional circumstances exist for the disposal and certain conditions must be met. Included are 3 maps that I will present to you. One is an overlay that of the existing Maxwell Parsons playground, and it looks like they are trying to say that that's city-owned property. Is the land of EGS of equal or greater value that the land of Matos? Will the land swap sit on environmental property that may also be protected from park construction? Where are the studies for this land that say it can be used? With so many questions answered, it's hard to imagine that a vote can take place tomorrow evening. The public, the neighbors deserve the answers. We're not asking for more green space in East Gloucester, rushed for an Article 97. We want neighborhood schools. Please vote no to this Article 97. And how will this new park change the demographics of the current neighborhood?
Mary Ann?
Leave the public to believe it's
Mary Ann?
safe forever when it's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Can you, yes. Perfect, thank you very much. Next, please, name and address.
J. Albert, 4 Davis Street Extension. And I grew up here. I grew up next to the school. I still live next to the school. And when I went to East Gloucester Elementary School, the school had a public library open a few nights a week to the general public. The school has and does now serve as a polling place for East Gloucester as well as a Ward 1 meeting place. Vets also is a neighborhood polling place. And living next to the East Gloucester Elementary School, I can attest to the foot traffic and vehicle traffic during busy election times. I can't imagine what Webster Street will look like when you're more than double the voters going there. We also have 2 World War I dedicated playgrounds. So far tonight we've been forgetting about Maxwell Parsons, which sits next to the East Gloucester School. Matter of fact, half the school sits on it, almost a similar situation as Vets. Both located in neighborhoods where our fallen heroes lived and played. Today, both are being threatened by a lack of common sense, innovation, and respect. We have a developer telling us what to do as costs skyrocket. Instead of telling the developer, here are the schools, develop this property into a state-of-the-art facility. We were told when Fuller School was surplus, it was too big and not suited for elementary-age children. Small neighborhood schools are the way to go. We still have them, and they are all eligible for MSBA funding from the state when their time comes. Rebuild what we have in the neighborhoods that welcome them. Preserve our green spaces and that small school environment that many communities crave for. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay, is your name on that? Because Dana didn't get your name when, okay. Thank you, sir.
I can say so many things.
Name and address, please.
Robert Reyes. I live in Swampscott, Mass. I grew up on Friend Street, 10 Friend Street.
Name and address, please.
I just told you. 11 Tid Street, Swampscott, Mass. Does it matter? Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, Swampscott, Mass. Robert Reyes, R-E-I-S. I prefer not to give that out. I know it's public knowledge, but I don't see why I have to give that out. 11 Tid Street, T-I-D-D, 01907.
I have a point of order. We typically don't let non-residents talk at a public
give me
hearing.
a break. I grew up right down the street. I'm going to be nice, and I just want to say a few things. Someone proved my point for me. This guy I went to elementary school with, who I really didn't get along with that well, okay, came up to me and told me to calm down.
I'll withdraw my opposition because I don't have council consensus, so thank you.
Go ahead, Rob.
No, let me finish. I grew up down the street. I'm buying a home in Gloucester. I have a right to talk. Are you intimidated by me, ma'am?
We're letting you talk, so just...
Okay, my
yes,
point is this.
There's no opposition.
Don't kids' friendships, true friendships, develop in elementary school? Isn't that what, if you commingle kids together, they won't have a chance to develop. I see a guy taught me how to play soccer sitting right there. And then he gave me a black eye and I gave him one back. And I heard a woman say she. What about us, our? Ever consider that? If you erase our history, our children have no future. That may not make sense to anybody. I understand a lot of you people are going to fly away to Florida in 5 years. So are you really concerned? Oh, why? Aren't we appealing to them? Why should I? All right, I will. Okay? So let me tell you something. I hear people crying. That's nice. I've cried so many tears, you can't even imagine. Okay? Do you know Caesar Rowland? Remember Caesar Rowland? How many of you hit a home run? How many of you guys hit a home run there? How many of you guys still I mean, come on, sure. Change is good. Haven't you changed Gloucester enough? Can't you leave it alone? Can you do that? Are you going to Florida? Jamie, where are you going this winter, next winter? Magnolia Pier?
Robbie,
Magnolia Pier?
Robbie, just hold on. Just
Magnolia
focus.
Pier's looking
Robbie,
nice,
just
Jamie.
focus and talk to us,
Are you
please.
going to be able to jump off that pier again? Am I going to be able to play baseball with the kids down Meadows Field, Jamie? Tell me. Okay, I only see concern on two people's faces, yours and yours. That tells me a lot.
All right, Rob, we're at the 3 minutes, bud.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Much I can say, but you-
I know, we're all trying to be respectful.
I can
Listen,
be
in the
as
beginning,
officious- I can be as
sir,
officious.
in the
over
beginning, we
officious.
asked everybody to be respectful. We have a lot of people, so be respectful of the people
I'm
that
not
are
being
behind.
disrespectful, because I called you out.
We asked to be respectful and to obey what we've asked. And not obeying what we've asked you very politely is kind of being disrespectful. So,
Get my point about growing up with
yes, we
people?
did. I grew up in Gloucester.
Donnie
I
Elwell. I
we-
carried
my-
Donnie
be-
Elwell on my
I get you.
back in the snow.
Next, please.
Remember Donnie Elwell?
Name and address for the record. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amanda Govany. I live at 392 Western Ave. I am the co-treasurer of the Cape Ann Women's Softball League. I've been a member of this league for, this will be my 10th season. Before that, I lived on Mount Vernon Street. I used to go down, watch them from the hill. I'm one of those terrible public speakers, by the way. We put effort into this field every year. We maintained it, the bathrooms, we aerate the outfield, we tore down all the vines off the backfield fence, Patty and Jane Suite. That field is used for the special needs softball games. That field is used for local organizations to raise money for dozens of charities ranging from youth athletic scholarships to treatment. It is the only softball field for girls with lights. And there's, I don't know how many Little League fields. And I know it's replaceable. Everything's replaceable. Like we're talking about, the schools are replaceable. I also grew up in that neighborhood, like I said. We go down to set up for our games, and there's kids playing football, soccer. They have random things strewn about the diamonds. They can play a pickup game. They're barrel rolling down the field, just hanging out. A lot of the families in that neighborhood can't afford to give their kids their own bedrooms, let alone their own backyards. I was one of those kids. The only other open space within walking distance of Front Street is Front Street Playground, and the only green stuff growing there is the weeds through the pavement. You can't expect a mother to allow her child to walk from Webster Street to Green Street to go play football with their friends. I think what's misconstrued is that the Women's Softball League, we're not selfishly looking for our field, because we know we can play anywhere. You know, we've been a league for a long time. And when the lights fell, we fixed it. If the field goes, we'll fix it. But what we can't fix is the fact that these kids won't have a green place, that these girls can't play softball into the night because there's no lights and there's no plan of immediate remedy, you know? And as we all went to school here and we all had Dr. Seuss Day. And there's a story called The Lorax. And the Onceler wants to knock down the forest because everybody needs a need. Just like every kid needs an education. But once he takes down all those trees and there's nothing left and his buildings are falling down and everything that inhabited that area is gone because there's nowhere to enjoy life, he realizes that he made a mistake. And I think disposing of this Article 97 protection is a mistake, and I hope we don't make it. That's it.
Thank you, Amanda. That was a tough person to follow, so thank you for holding it together.
Good evening. My name is Reginald Santos. I live at 8 Brooks Road in Salisbury, Massachusetts, and Joseph S. Matos was my uncle. My uncle, Private Joseph S. Matos, was not a high-ranking officer or a politician. He didn't survive the war to become a veteran. Didn't live that long. He was just a Gloucester kid, a fisherman's son, 19 years old when he was killed in combat in France. So maybe there's really no need for the city of Gloucester to honor his memory or the sacrifice of his family. Joseph was born and brought up on Linnet Place, just a stone's throw from the present field, so it is eminently fitting that his memorial should be in the neighborhood where he was raised. In 1935, while his mother, father, and 7 siblings were still alive and active in Gloucester, a playground on Webster Street was dedicated to his memory. A unique honor at the time, as today, when most public facilities are named for politicians or distinguished military leaders. But time has dulled that memory and the need to honor his memory. In the early 50s, a large portion of that playground was taken to build a Veterans Memorial School. But it was a long time ago, and neglect and the passage of time have so deteriorated that school that the current city leaders feel it needs to be replaced. When the present memorial school was first proposed, there was a strong feeling in the community, especially the Portuguese community, that be named in honor of Private Joseph S. Matos, Jr. However, Veterans Group has interceded, and because there were a lack of other monuments to veterans in general, they convinced the city to name this present school the Veterans Memorial School in honor of all veterans. So a large part of Matos Playground became the new school. Now the school committee wants to take the rest of that memorial and build a bigger school. The school building committee has mentioned some of its tenuous plans to move the field to East Gloucester, far away from its present location, in a new location that would have very little connection and meaning to nearby residents. Under Article 97, a piece of recreational property is taken, it must be replaced with a suitable substitute. Is a site in East Gloucester suitable for kids living on Friend Street or Sadler Street and the surrounding area? Do they walk or get on their bicycles and make their way across town to a new playground? Not only is this wrong, but do heavy traffic grossly unsafe. Thank you.
Thank you, Reg. Next, name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lara Giardulo, that's L-A-R-A. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Hi.
Hi. Into the microphone.
I won't
Thank you.
talk too close to it. My name is Lara Giardulo, that's L-A-R-A, last name J-A-R-D-U-L-L-O, because it's very hard to spell, and I live at 2 Ocean Avenue. I want to start by saying thank you to all the council members, and I also want to thank all the teachers that work so hard over at East Gloucester Elementary and all the other teachers in the building. Being an educator myself, I know that that's a very important role, and I do take children's education very important. It's a very important thing. And I also want to say, it's not that I oppose building a new school. To me, it's just the location and the lack of green space that will be available, and you've seen the plans, I'm sure, and there is a very little amount of green space that will really take away from the integrity of the neighborhood. And that's something that I don't have in this letter, but that is just, they just released the new plans, and I feel like it is a great disparage to not have that green space. And so I'll just begin. Tonight we're voting whether or not to have a new school or not in place of, whether a new school should go in place of Matos Field. If so, the new school would be replacing an extremely important green space on Webster Street. This field has been a green space used for recreation for over 100 years. The field is deeded, as you guys know, for recreational space, and that fact should be upheld and respected. This field is dedicated to a local veteran, Joseph Matos, Jr. Joseph gave his life in service during World War I. This dedication should stay in place, and his sacrifice should be remembered. This field is important to the city as well as the community used by. And like Amanda said, every time we pull up to the field during softball games, there are parents with kids playing. They can't get to East Gloucester as easily accessed to do that kind of playing, and just ride their bikes over. I think the neighborhood schools are very important. These lovely little schools provide a close-knit community to parents and students that a large regionalization cannot provide. I teach a class for third graders. It's Dancing Through the Decades. I've done it not at Veterans School, but at all the other elementary schools. And these lovely schools are charming, and I know that they do need repairs, and I do acknowledge that because even the heat has been having trouble over East Gloucester. These neighborhood schools provide a small classroom atmosphere and a personal approach that students just don't get. If I'm teaching, which I had to at West Parish, I had to teach a large-scale class, and I can't give them the close-knit type of experience that they can provide. And I think that special programs such as art, music, and PE would suffer from these large classroom volumes. And it's a huge, these classes play a huge role to a child's development and well-being. I feel we can do better. I can feel we can find a better option. Between the traffic impact and the lack of lot space, it will have a negative impact on the community. And please find another solution than the veteran site. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you, Laura. Can we have your statement, please? Thank you. And if you want to teach the council how to dance through the decades, we're all for it. All right, let us know. We'll come to it. Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Kaylee Meone, 6 Davis Street Extension. My husband and I are the direct abutters of the East Gloucester school site, and we have many concerns about the possibility of a land swap. Here are some of them. Will this land be deed protected forever? Does forever mean anything? As the motion states, is it without restrictions? Could we then lose this open space because the land is wanted for housing and/or development? If no, what guarantee do we have? What will happen to this land if and when the building is taken down? Is there a projected drawing of what it will look like? Is this swap an overlay onto Lieutenant Maxwell Parsons Playground? If not, how far will it extend? What will be the price tag to the taxpayers to create such a park? Who will maintain the park? Will the layout of our street change? Will the circle out front of the school stay? Who will maintain that if it does stay? Because currently the PTO does that. We are concerned about the runoff and drainage if it is graded down. What is the projected timeline for land swap to take place? Is there a time frame in which 8 Davis Street Extension would be turned into a green space? As parents of children who would attend that school, we are concerned about the lack of open space at what would be the veteran site. 6,750 square feet is a minimal amount of non-structured open space for children to use. Where would outside school-wide events take place, such as field day? I know my children have Maxwell Parsons Playground to play at. They're a stone's throw away. I can see them walk there. The children over near Green Street, over near the veteran site, will lose that space. How fair is it that my kids are going to be gaining all this extra open space where these kids are going to lose their open space that they have in their neighborhood? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kaylee. Next, please. Name and address for the record.
Yeah. My name is Ben Blanchard. I live at 14 Webster Street. And I just think it's ironic that I laughed when I first read that, built not for today alone, but for tomorrow as well. And I feel like that was the whole intent of the Meadows Fields. You know, we're not, even if it was like, oh, well, this section, but not this section here, it was sold for $1 and for the sole purpose of recreation, playground. You know, and I just feel like we can mince and change things, but this is what it was for. Why can't we preserve what was originally intended for? That's frustrating to me. I live across the street, and I moved up to this community because it was a seaside community, and it had music, and it has art, and it has the local people, and I value community. And what I've found by living there is, like, whether it's the women's softball team or like other people that go there, I'll go over there and throw the ball around, and I meet other people. And that's what community is, and that's why one of the reasons why I moved up here. And you know, some of my friends that are like bankers and real estate people are like, oh, don't fight it because your real estate's going to go up if they build a new school. But I'm like, what about, like, you know, what about me and the kids? And like, I was one of those kids that was always out in the field doing stuff, and that was like a mental health thing for me to get rid of my whatever was going on in my life. And these kids around the neighborhood, I see them, whether they're like baseball or like frisbee or whatever it is, they're down there, like, they're not in their homes or in their basements or in their rooms, like playing on the computers that we're trying to get them away from. They're playing, and they're in community, and they're learning how to fight and get over stuff and all that. You know, it's just frustrating because it's a public, I understood it, you know, when I moved in, oh, this is a public land, nobody's ever going to touch that. That's going to be desert. Well, why can't we, as representatives of our people, and if we're so concerned about our kids, why can't we uphold what it means to preserve something that was deeded for that purpose? you know, I came to that other meeting that you had a couple weeks ago, and it was interesting. That says what you as a committee had to determine in number 7 for the procedure is the Gloucester Department of Public Work has to issue a memorandum declaring that Mados 2 is no longer needed for such purpose, and it refers the matter to Land Disposition Committee for action. Well, we need that land for its purpose, recreation and play, for a community. I live in that community, and thank you. And we need to preserve that community feeling. You can't move it across. I don't even know where East Gloucester is. It's like, I'm joking, but you know what I'm saying. You know, it's like you gotta, thanks.
Thank you, Ben. Ben, can you leave your statement with our clerk of committees, please? That's all right, bud. Thank you. I appreciate it. Name and address for the record.
Karen O'Donnell, 3 Orchard Road, Gloucester, Mass. My question is, in consideration of Article 97, vote coming up tomorrow, why presume the new location will guarantee and ensure the use in perpetuity in light of this absurd proposal allowing demolition of open space that itself was deemed to have had the same protection? Do not bring this vote forward. If you do, vote no on Article 97. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Next, please. Name and address for the record.
Stuart Lear, 90 Mount Pleasant Ave. My wife and I originally lived on Mount Vernon Street. When I moved here, driving past Mados Field was such a pleasure to see. It was great to see that green space. It was run down then when I first moved here. It was great to see it revived and got a new space for people to use. We moved over to East Gloucester. We had kids. We decided to stay in the city for the small schools. I don't think it would be fair to take away one green space in a neighborhood and put it in one other neighborhood. I really oppose Article 97.
Thank you, Stu. Next, name and address for the record, please.
Tracy O'Neill, 12 Friend Street. If I may, I'd like to give this to your counselors to take a look at this photo. It's out in front of my house. Pass it along. Cars drive up over my sidewalk constantly. So if in that photo you're looking up the hill from Prospect Street, so Sunbank is on your right, my house is on the left. Cars park on the right, they don't park on the left, there's no curb, and it's used as for 2 cars to pass. If they don't go up over the sidewalk, 2 cars cannot pass. So it's already dangerous for me and my 7-year-old nephew, whom I enjoy having once a week. I put my life in my hands because there's a tree right there that I can't see cars coming, so I have to stop and listen for cars before I step out onto my sidewalk. So adding 200 more students, there are 200 students in veterans now, and you're gonna add 200 more or 240 more, that would increase traffic by 200 cars, or 100, even just 100. They're gonna drop their kids off, they're gonna take a left on a Friend Street, and they're coming right down over my sidewalk. For anyone to think that they're gonna go in that loop in a queue of 100 cars and wait to pick up kids, I think is really unrealistic. They're gonna wait on the side of the road of Webster Street, and the diagram of Webster Street, if it was up, it looks a lot wider than it truly is. That's my spiel on that. Tonight is about Article 97. And the first gentleman that spoke, Chip, he works for the city, yes? Okay, he said this is like the first of many votes to come. So I would ask that you hold off voting on Article 97 tomorrow and wait until the citizens of the city vote in the November election or whenever you have the election to see if if it passes, like if people vote for the school to be put there, then go after the Article 97 thing. Why go after 97 if the majority of the city doesn't want the school to go there? So, and then if you do the Article 97, then it'll be done, and anyone can take that land. Right? So I implore you, I ask you, please hold off until the city of Gloucester votes on the school before you vote on Article 97. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Next, please, name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Denise Pascucci. I'm from, I live at Birch Grove Heights. Sorry, I have a cold and having a hard time talking. But I totally agree with Tracy as far as taking this vote tomorrow prior to debt exclusion vote in November. I think that's putting the cart before the horse, but that's my opinion on that. Tonight is definitely about Article 97. I don't have any issues with us trying to better our schools, making them safe, and that's, I think, one of the most important things that all our schools are safe, okay? But as you can see, I am a part of the Cape Ann Women's Softball League. I was also a part of the Light Up Matos Committee, which we raised a lot of money. We raised $280,000 within a 3-year period with Patty, and I mean, we're talking countless hours, okay? CPA grants, $190,000 in CPA grants. That's money that we all paid through our taxes, all of us that live here, okay? So as far as taking that money, we accepted a $75,000 donation from the Dusky Foundation. To me, taking money from our citizens and putting it into a field that we all thought that would be there forever, because it has been there forever, I mean, 85 years or so, and it's been in a neighborhood that needs that green space. Obviously, the schools are needed, but the space that you're choosing after the traffic study was finished, it looked like they added another loop, which is the afternoon pickup, which I think really makes that a crammed-in space. You have a loop that extends around a 100 by 60-foot turf fenced-in area. I don't think that can equal a green space that kids can come out of school and play. And I asked at one of the meetings is, what about the weekends? Where are the kids going to play in that area on the weekends? How safe is that school that you have roads around the whole place? You're going to dig a hole out front for buses. To the right is a drop-off. To the left is a afternoon pickup. So I really, really hope that you look at what you're doing here as far as pushing this whole thing through and changing the law that protects our open spaces. And I think for the future of my grandchildren and everybody else's children and grandchildren, that Gloucester is a special, beautiful place. If you start taking away these special protected lands, you're taking away what we have at the beauty of the city. And thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Next, name and address for the record, please.
Kelly Brancleone, 28 Sayward Street.
Yeah, Denise, if you want to give that to Dana, please, that'd be great.
28 Sayward Street. I'm speaking tonight not only as a volunteer member of the Light Up Matos Committee, but as a concerned engineering professional and citizen. It's my belief that Matos Field site is not an appropriate site to construct a new building. The site comes with both structural and financial risks. In 2005, the Light Up Matos Committee retained the services of a geotechnical engineer to perform a subsurface investigation of the field. According to his report, the existing light pole adjacent to the right field is leaning significantly, suggesting the soils in the area provide inadequate lateral support. Not to our surprise, one of the poles collapsed that summer, putting the field out of commission. The soil was highly and is still highly unstable. Let's remember the field was once occupied by a pond that had been filled and leveled, and fill is generally not high-quality material. In 2005, the report goes on to say the groundwater levels range from 1 to 3 feet below ground surface. Such a high water table could result in groundwater seeping into the building's foundation, causing both cosmetic and structural damage by undermining the structure. We are all aware of the problems associated with water present in the East Gloucester School basement. On the site of a former pond, we should be prepared for potential water issues. Published just last month, based on more recent investigations, the preferred schematic report by the architect states, there is no one single foundation support system that can accommodate the subsurface conditions that underlie this proposed building. The conditions vary throughout the site, we found, and each condition represents a unique challenge that has to be rectified. The existing ground needs to be improved by various soil strengthening techniques before construction of a new foundation can even begin. The extent of these improvements is unknown and could amount to an astronomical cost. Let's not forget the issues with the Gloucester High School bleachers, which also lay on a fill site. In the years after they were built, the bleachers settled and the entire structure had to be removed and rebuilt on a new foundation. I'm gravely concerned the risks associated with construction on this site are far more serious than the voting members of the committee are aware of. I urge the school committee to take a step back and consider an alternate and more appropriate site for the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Next, name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Catherine Ryan, and my address is 17 High Rock. We're here today to discuss Article 97 because a new consolidated school is proposed. It's not should city council members vote yes or no tomorrow on Article 97, it's how can the city council vote at all, because doing so makes public opinion and voting come November moot by design. Specifically, how can the city council vote yes or no when members of the school committee, as recently as February 12, 2020, the last meeting, were confused about the consolidation plans and costs and did not understand Article 97. At the last school committee meeting, members posed questions like this. The 97 means that if we petition the state, we're doing like a swap of land, meaning the land that the East Gloucester School currently sits on is going to be swapped for green space. With that, we're going to take in Meadows. Am I correct, Meadows? But how does that protect us or prevent a lawsuit going forward? So if this passes, there's no legal challenge to the actual doing it? To which the superintendent summarized, it's a 2/3 vote in the House and it's a 2/3 vote in the Senate. And if it's approved, what standing does any litigator have? Well, that seems to neutralize any public override vote come November. That's called stacking the deck. I also want to address, have the appropriate disclosure forms been filed with the city and state? I appreciate both of your comments at the beginning, but specifically I want to push a little bit on Councilor Gilman, also the new executive director on the building committee, the new executive director for GEF on the building committee, and former council chair Paul Lumberg in his capacity with Vote Yes. Please see the required state ethics conflict of interest law training course slides 1, 5, 10, 40, 65, 68, and 69. I can read them out, but I want to be conscious of the 3 minutes. Val, I appreciate that you're a volunteer in both capacities, but as recently as January, you were doing a fundraiser for GEF.
I have not done a fundraiser for GEF, so
You
thank you
did,
for telling me.
you were the city councilor, your
Catherine,
donations went to GEF.
I did not do a fundraiser for GEF, so excuse me, point of order.
And it
Thank
doesn't
you.
matter if you're a volunteer, because the slide says,
Point of order.
whether you're volunteer or not.
Counselor, thank you, Council President.
Catherine,
This
we
is
need
out
to-
of order.
we need to
It's
be
unfair
respectful.
to me.
And attacking the council is not respectful.
Okay, so I just want to repeat 1, 5, 10, 40, 65, 68, and 69, and I hope that we can get a response to that. And my final comment is, in consideration of the Article 97 vote coming up tomorrow, I'm asking that you postpone the vote until after the public votes in the fall. And why? Because no city project of this magnitude should be hinging on a 9th-hour Article 97 vote, which can technically move forward under the purview of a group, the building committee, which has members that aren't elected. People have noted that there have been 30 public meetings. Yes, the school committee and building committee meetings are public. It's the law. However, the working groups are not subject to open meeting law
Catherine.
in or where substantial discussions and decisions happen.
Catherine.
So in consideration of the Article 97 vote, how many working meetings have there been? And can
Next,
we
please.
please say no? Thank you.
Next, name and address for the record. Thank you for being respectful, Catherine. Next, name and address for the record, please. Thank you, sir.
My name's Doug Parsons. I live at 39 Mount Pleasant Avenue. A little ancient history. About 40 years ago, they decided to close a bunch of neighborhood schools in Gloucester, and I was involved in trying to keep them open. That didn't work. So my impression of a neighborhood school now doesn't exist. If I was in your situation, in some respects right now, I would say, why go with a 97 at all? Put the school where you're not going to have that problem. You got 22 acres of land with the Beaman School. You could put it up there. You're going to rebuild Beaman. You're going to move Plum Cove down the road. You folks may not, but somewhere along the way. Not leave East Gloucester and Veterans where it is for now. Build a new Beaman Plum Cove school up there, and then build a new East Gloucester Veterans School on the same piece of property, but keep the kids together. And that way you don't have any Article 97 problem. You got the kids there, they're gonna go from there to O'Malley, which is down the street. And you keep the fields where they are in East Gloucester and at Mados. And I just think it would be make a whole lot more sense. And I know, then again, we can't afford it. So you gotta go through that route too. But this is where I think you need to look at another position. And just for the fun of it, my family's been here since 1650. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. I'm a proud alumni of Hovey School, so I remember neighborhood schools. Next, name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Z. Seppala, 92 Granite Street, Rockport. When I read the Gloucester Times notice advising the public of this hearing, I wasn't really sure whether it was a public hearing or a resident hearing. So the reason I'm showing up late tonight is because I was sitting in my bed watching this on television when a guy from Swampscott came in here and set a precedent. And I said, I guess it's a public hearing as well as a resident hearing. So I'm glad to hear that, because I think that the city of Gloucester and any community does well to listen to outsiders without any necessarily vested interests, but just a disinterested interest in the overall scheme. And I know when I think back to my elementary school days down in Pigeon Cove, we had a big field right adjacent to it, and I think the lessons that you learn on that field are it's just as important as what we ever learned in school. Number one is that life has got certain sets of rules that you go by, and we set our own rules on that field, but we played by them, and people were excluded from the games if they didn't follow them. So I'm just saying there's I think, a great deal of benefit in informal as well as formally structured activities. And the only thing that I'm really thinking, that I was thinking a couple of days ago, is that if you move another substitute, another place over on Easton Avenue School or whatever it is, can kids actually walk there? Can they get there? Do they have to be transported there? And if that's the case, then I think that there's some serious thought that has to go into shifting any fields where people have to be transported by adults. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Sorry to get you off your couch tonight. Oh, he's in bed.
Thanks, Steve. My name's Pete Wright, 12 Mystic Avenue. Peter Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T, 12 Mystic Avenue. Basically, I just have a question for you. How many think it's a good idea to put a recreational area, fenced-in recreational area, surrounded by a road? I know it's not a main road, but it's still surrounded by road. Anyone want to answer that? Does anyone think it's a good idea? I think it's time to send them back to the drawing board and put the schools in the wrong spot. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Next, please. Name and address.
Pam Steele, 10 Pilots Hill. I'm here to ask you to vote no, because me and my fellow senior citizens are not going to be appreciative of being driven out of town by the taxes. And it looks like no one can seem to tell us how much more we're going to be paying so we can project into the next 10 or 20, well, however many years we're going to have to be paying with the sewer coming. And the other thing that really upsets me is taking that field from the kids at Webster. There's no way they're going to go play at East Gloucester. How can you say on one hand you love kids, and then you take their field away? 180 days is school. 180 days is playing in the field. I went to St. Nancy with 50, 40 kids in a class. I loved it. It was a community. It's made me who I am. You don't need the bells and whistles. You need a community. This community is torn apart by this issue. Whether you want to own it or not, I see people every day. It's wrong. You've got to help us. There's got to be another way out. I've been to every meeting. This is my golden years. I'm supposed to be home, happy, watching TV. I'm at every meeting trying to figure out how I can fit in, what we can do, and it's just, I don't know. But I would just like you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Next, name and record for the, name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Denise Foley, 57 Western Ave. And I agree with everything they said about not building in that site. But I'm up here for a really important question. When I looked at the PDF on the Times website, the new proposal includes the house and the fraternity club and the building on the side. And I want to know if that's going to be taken under eminent domain or what's going on with that. And I don't see how you could vote with that kind of outline. So what is the answer to that?
We'll ask questions. Right now is not the time for questions. After this, we'll write it down and we'll ask our general
but how
counsel.
can you vote tomorrow if it looks like it's going to be taken by eminent domain and not one person knows about this?
The way the public hearing goes is we listen to the public hearing and then we ask questions.
Okay.
So right now is not the
So
time
please
to ask a
consider
question.
that, because that's a huge deal. I mean, the yellow that goes over the new site proposal includes the fraternity club, what's the number? 25 Webster Street, and then if you go up around the corner, there's a huge building there that it looks like it covers too. So is anybody else aware of this, or did I just pick it up? So please don't vote yet.
Thank you, Denise. Next, name and address for the record, please.
Yes, hello, my name is Richard Alexander. I reside at 16 Webster Street. I've been born in Gloucester. I've lived here my whole life. I've lived most of my life on Webster Street, and that was my cousin who just talked. At some point, I would like to have that addressed because my parents live at 25 Webster Street, which abuts the land at 11 Webster Street. So if that project goes any further, they may be forced out. So at some point, I would like that to be addressed. Now, as far as the new construction, I've lived on Webster Street most of my life. And I've seen the changes, I've seen the land and the school itself evolve. I went to that school as a child, so I wouldn't like to see it go. But your new proposal will be doubling the population from 220 to about 440 students. Okay, there's a logistical problem there. It's really traffic. So I've seen full-size school buses trying to get in and out. Webster Street is a very narrow street. And if you try to double the capacity, you will have log jams. So, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in opposition? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
Yes, they were. You received them all, and they were 10.
in opposition and 32 in support.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So now the time is for councilor questions. Are there any councilor questions? What I'd like to do is I'd like to start at one end, if that's okay with everybody, and work our way through the council. Councilor McCarthy, you have any questions?
Yeah, I believe if we can get maybe someone from the school to answer the question on Article 97 protection for the East Gloucester parcel and whether how that's going to be deeded and protected in the future, which was one of the questions that was brought up.
Yeah, I think that would be more of our general counsel, I think.
I think
the offer, the legislative offer to that the city's going to file, the petition's going to include language that says Mados, or this site in question, in exchange for East Gloucester with a deed restriction on it, consistent to meeting the requirements of Article 97. So it's a condition of the legislation that's going to be approved. If it makes it that far, it will have a condition that will be required to put on it, in perpetuity, in theory.
okay, just for the public, so the East Gloucester site will be protected in perpetuity?
Yes.
From any future development or?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor O'Hara.
In reference to the land at East Gloucester, how would that, I don't know who can answer this question from the administration, as far as the stream that runs through the school, how that would play into, this is supposed to be an equal swap on land, how that would play into the land space.
I'm not sure what the question.
The question, there is a stream that runs through the East Gloucester School. How will that be addressed during the construction, the demolition of the existing school, and made so that land space is, we're supposed to be trading a quarter for a quarter plus, but how does that stream play into field green space?
I'm not sure who would like to take a stab at this. Mr. Catamatori, you drew the small straw, huh?
I'll take a stab at it. So, I mean, the process of identifying another piece of property, it is to be used for open space. I think the conception, if the East Gloucester Schools building is actually raised, that there's an opportunity to augment the playground use, an open space use, but there obviously, as well as a natural resource there, that would have to be accommodated. So the building design portion that, that as you're seeing advance for the combined school, equally there will have to be a demolition plan if this does move forward and it is consolidated to that site, which will have to, again, accommodate the natural resource as well.
Councilor O'Hara?
In reference to Article 97 and the Joseph Mados Field, where does the administration plan on moving the softball field to?
Welcome back, Greg.
I believe most of the discussions have focused on augmenting the Green Street field at this point. There were originally discussions about potentially the high school as well as an option. I do think that's something important to nail down exactly what will be done. But for most recent discussions have been looking at potential parking facilities as well as enhancing the Green Street fields.
Thank you, Greg.
In reference to that answer, that's not replacing a field, that's moving a field. So I asked the question, where are we rebuilding a new field? This is off topic, but we've lost fields in the city. We lost Charles Thomas Field at Fuller School. I played...
Councilor O'Hara, this is...
I understand,
Okay.
but I've asked a question. The administration cannot answer that. Where are we building a new field?
Thank you, Councilor O'Hara. Councilor Memhard.
I would just like to thank everybody for their comments on both sides here. I had the privilege of touring the East Gloucester and Veterans School sites this afternoon with their principals. Both have some history of wetness. We had a very close look of the stream that does run through the basement of the East Gloucester School site, and it's a damp, dank situation, and there's going to be a culvert there that's going to channel it from the Mount Pleasant Cemetery down to Caledonia Place where it is now, and it's going to be replaced in the same way that the Meadows Field site is also wet. But I don't have any other questions at this time. I'd like to thank everybody for their comments.
Thank you, Councilor Memhard. Councilor Cox.
In response to Councilor O'Hara, there isn't a current softball field up at Green Street, so that would be a replacing. It would be placing a field up there, only because there isn't a current softball field up there. It is open space, correct, but anyway. My question is for Attorney Payson. Is there a legal reason why we're not delaying the Article 97 vote until after the November vote?
No. I mean,
Is there...
listen, this vote has to happen before the land transfer happens. A legal reason why it has to happen now, I mean, the reason why it's happening now, I think, is more of kind of a timing issue. The question was asked by the school building committee and the school committee. So, you know, we prepared the legal advice, and that's why we're here.
Is there any reason why any of the future votes need to happen prior to the November funding vote?
Well, that's a question for the school building committee, because there's timelines and fundings that occurs.
I can answer that. The MSBA, to get MSBA funding, we have to submit a preferred schematic design. When that's submitted, the school department has to be in possession of the property, or or they don't accept it.
When is your deadline to do that step?
August.
Thank you.
More questions, Councilor Cox? Councilor Gilman.
I would like Jonathan Pope to come back up as the head of the building committee and clarify that property is not going to be taken away on all those neighboring locations. As two folks said that there's a PDF on the Gloucester Daily Times website, including the fraternity club and other properties.
There is no plan before the building committee that takes any property other than the existing city-owned properties.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Councilor Pat.
I just have a couple of questions that won't necessarily need to be answered this evening, but I believe they need to be addressed. Number one, if the Article 97 is to go forward, and we're going to move the Meadows Field to the East Gloucester site, which, when you add it to the current playground property, does seem totally acceptable as far as size is concerned. There becomes the issue and the question that has been brought up of the playing field, such as the Cape Ann Women's Softball League. And I think as part of this discussion moving forward, they deserve an answer as to before all of this comes to a final debt exclusion vote as to where they will go, whether that is, are they going to be using, say, the high school field until something is constructed, and if it is going to be, is it going to be at Green Street? Is that going to, include moving the lights, et cetera? I think all the individuals that were involved in raising all that money deserve that answer as we go along, not afterwards, and where they would play, during the whole construction period. So that's number one. And then number two, my question that I believe needs to be addressed, and I believe the city, again, will and is addressing it, is the naming of, again, whether it was Mado's Playground or Mado's Field or whatever it is, and what the city's plan is, how they plan on doing that. And I would ask that the city include the family members in that discussion moving forward, and letting everyone know in the city how we are going to continue to honor private Mados. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pat. Councilor Holmgren.
Thankfully, all of my questions have now been answered, at least for now. I want to echo Councilor Memhard in saying I do appreciate everybody coming out. I took extensive notes. I will be digesting them overnight, and this has been a very difficult and emotional process for all of us, and I do appreciate the time that you took to come out.
Thank you, Councilor Holmgren. Councilor Nolan.
I have a question for Jonathan Pope. In the plans for the school itself, there is plans for finances for relocating the light poles in the fields and the demolition of the school all in one package.
Yes, as of right now, we're trying to figure out how that works. We don't get reimbursed for any of that. So there may be other sources of funding for the demolition, the moving of the field, and also the swing space.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more councilor questions? Councilor Cox.
Jonathan? I'm just helping you get your steps in because we didn't do that enough today on the tours. If we vote in favor of Article 97 tomorrow, and the November vote is a no, we've already given the land to you in that disposition. So what happens if there's a no vote in November to fund the school? Do we get our land back? Can we put that, and this, Attorney Payson, if you want to chime in on this as well, can we put a caveat in our vote tomorrow that says, if the November vote does not pass, if there's no funding, then the land reverts back to the city under ownership of the DPW.
Okay, I think that the vote for Article 97 is not the vote to transfer the land. It is the vote to allow you to transfer the land. So if you wanted to put a caveat such as that, it wouldn't be in tomorrow's vote. It would be in the vote after the legislature votes it up or down, and it comes back to you, and then you would be voting to transfer the land from DPW to the school department. If you wanted to put a caveat in that, that's up to you. That's your call.
And you're correct, it doesn't have anything to do with 97, but this is the process that kicks it all off.
Right.
So that's, I'd like to have this discussion now than, in a couple months or however long it takes the legislator body to do that.
Okay. Should I leave?
Excellent question, Councilor Cox. Thank you. Councilor Gilman.
I have another question that has come up, not just tonight, but at times that I think deserves clarification, and Jonathan, it might be you again, so sorry. So the question is, I've had a lot of people ask the question about why we're just not generally voting for a location for a school as a general question, rather, like, how does that fit into the MSBA process of the vote in November, if it comes to be, is the MSBA vote for a debt exclusion override that is for that purpose, correct? It's not just for a general school at that point. It's for it's for everything that has been brought forward to date. Can you just explain that? Thank you.
Yeah, I can. So at the point that you transfer the property to the school department, we can then submit our preferred schematic design. They've already accepted our preferred schematic report, which shows we can't go back and change that, okay? And it shows building a school at the veterans site, okay? So what happens is once they acknowledge that they accept our preferred schematic design, then the city has to provide funding to build it. Okay, that's where the debt exclusion override comes in. If the debt exclusion override doesn't pass, it all just stops. It's not like we can do something else.
And I understand that this last queue was like, there were 11 out of 88 people that got accepted for what we have in front of us. Can you just describe that one question in terms of the competition out there for us to get on a queue again, like how long that would take?
So in 2016, we applied to the MSBA with a statement of interest. And at the time, we applied for both Beaman and East Gloucester School. When they reviewed our applications, they came back and said, you've got to prioritize one. We're not going to consider two schools. So the school committee decided on East Gloucester. The school committee, and the city council voted on that, by the way, the statement of interest. We get accepted into the statement of interest, and from there you go into feasibility, from there to feasibility, into you keep progressing along, and what they make us do is look at every possibility in the early stages. We had to look at renovations of East Gloucester. We had to look at renovations and additions at East Gloucester. We had to look at a new school for East Gloucester. We had to look at a new school for the combined school at East Gloucester. We had to spend a lot of time and energy looking at all of those things. And then we looked at a couple of possibilities of a combined school at East Gloucester, and we looked at a couple of possibilities of a combined school at Green Street. And the building committee, which is the authority in this situation, it's a city committee. It's not appointed by the school committee. It's appointed by the administration. It has the power to make these decisions. We had public hearings, we have public meetings, we've got input from the city, whether they were interested in acquiring land or just dealing with property that they owned. But the city school building committee narrowed it down to the veterans site. And there's no condition, or there was no request from the city that we put that as a referendum on a ballot before we made those decisions. So we didn't do that. But at this point, it's There are a number of votes that you will have to take. There's a number of votes that the school committee will have to take, but ultimately, the vote for the debt exclusion will be an up or down vote.
Thank you.
Councillor McCarthy, please.
For General Counsel, on the Article 97, it says comparable size and value, and it was brought up by one of the abutters here tonight, asking if there's an overlay of the Parsons Playground, which pre-existed the school over in East Gloucester. Is that being considered, or is it just the school property?
I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to look into that. I don't know if Greg knows the answer, but I could respond to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow at City Council meeting.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Hara? Is there any more councillor questions? Seeing none. Usually at this point, we ask for the committee report, but we're not having a committee report tomorrow, this evening. We're going to do the vote tomorrow evening during the Planning and Development Committee report. So that being said, I'd like to thank you, everyone, for coming out here this evening. Oh, we're going to close the public hearing. I'd like to thank everybody for coming here tonight. I know it's a long process. There's steps that we have to go through. This is one step, and you know, there's many steps that are going to do this, an additional step. So thank you for being here. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.